It was 2 a.m., and Ibrahim Traoré's office was still ablaze with light. The relentless shrill of telephones echoed through the marble corridors. Inside the emergency chamber, the central bank president, the minister of economy, and a cadre of senior advisors gathered in tense huddles. Then, as if fate itself had struck a cruel chord, devastating headlines lit up the screen. French banks freeze transfers to Burkina Faso. International Monetary Fund suspends loan disbursements. CFA franc rapidly vanishing from circulation. The unthinkable loomed. Within mere hours, the economic collapse of the nation could begin in earnest. Traoré slammed his fist onto the oak table, the thunderous crack silencing the room. His voice was graveled with fury. This is how they have shackled us for decades. Even the currency in our pockets is not our own. He turned slowly, gaze burning into his team, and articulated a plan so audacious that stunned silence descended. "We can't possibly do this," the finance minister murmured, eyes wide. "No nation has ever dared such a thing." Traoré's lips curled into a slow, fearless smile. "Then let history remember. We will be the first." The air inside the presidential palace shimmered with unease. Beyond the tall windows, the lights of Ouagadougou blinked gently in the night. But inside those walls, the fate of Burkina Faso teetered on a precipice. Traoré approached the glass panes, his hands folded firmly behind his back, his silhouette solemn and commanding. "How much in reserves do we command?" he asked quietly, his gaze still lost over the cityscape. Dr. Amina Konaté, the central bank president, flipped open her thick dossier. "On paper, approximately $400 million, but the overwhelming majority of it sits immobilized in accounts in Paris. We are cut off from it now." "And our gold reserves?" Traoré pressed on. "We have 78 tons officially recorded," Konaté answered cautiously, her voice faltering. "But that too," Traoré concluded, his smile lined with bitter irony, "rests comfortably in French vaults." Economy Minister Ousmane Zongo shifted uneasily, his fingers drumming anxiously. "Mr. President, you must understand the magnitude of what you are suggesting. Exiting the West African Economic Union, rejecting the CFA franc, it is not just risky, it is a national suicide." "Suicide?" Traoré snapped, his eyes igniting with fire. "Or liberation?" He leaned forward, voice thick with conviction. "Tell me, Zongo, can we call ourselves sovereign when we do not even own the ink on our banknotes? The CFA franc is the last chain binding us to colonial servitude." Zongo raised his palms helplessly. "Yet all of West Africa is entangled in the system. Mali, Niger, Senegal, all of them. And all of them remain impoverished," Traoré cut in sharply, stepping toward the center of the room. "Do you know why? Because each time we print money, we are forced to deposit equivalent reserves in the French treasury. We pay for the right to use our own currency. Tell me, is this freedom?" A heavy hush fell. Everyone in that room had long known these truths, yet voicing them out loud felt like cracking the spine of an ancient curse. Dr. Konaté exhaled slowly. "Mr. President, you speak truth, but practically, how? We lack the means to print a new currency. No presses, no secure infrastructure. And if citizens storm banks at dawn..." Traoré slid a thick dossier across the table. His voice, calm and assured, broke the tension. "That is why I have already begun preparing, in absolute secrecy, for the last 3 months." The advisors leaned in. On the front of the file, bold letters read, "Operation Sankara. Thomas Sankara's dream. Unfinished no longer. Financial independence," Traoré declared. As he opened the file, collective gasps echoed. Inside were intricate, exhaustive blueprints for a new currency to supplant the CFA franc, the Burkina gold. "This cannot be done," the finance minister stammered, his voice brittle. Our foreign reserves are inadequate, without recognition on the world stage. Traoré reached into his pocket and drew out a gleaming golden disc. On one side, the silhouette of a baobab tree shimmered. On the other, the proud map of Burkina Faso. He set it on the table, its metallic shine casting reflections on every face. A prototype of the Burkina gold, he said softly, forged entirely from our own gold, mined on Burkina Bay soil, refined by our own people. Dr. Konate faltered, her thoughts spiraling. But foreign corporations dominate our minds. They regulate every gram of gold we export. Not anymore, Traoré's voice cut in, glinting with defiance. The economy minister shot up from his seat. You've nationalized the gold mines? Officially, by sunrise, Traoré answered evenly. But the operation commenced 3 hours ago. As we speak, our army has secured control of every mining site. French and American executives are being escorted, graciously but firmly, to our borders. A stunned quiet swept the room. What he had done was perilous, but masterful. What of retaliation? Boycotts? Sanctions? Konate asked gravely. Oh, undoubtedly, Traoré agreed. They will come to break us, but to strike, they first need reach. He tapped a button. A global map lit the screen. Nations glowed in red. Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, India, Brazil. For 6 months, we have brokered clandestine pacts with these partners, he revealed. We will sell our gold directly to them, in their own currencies. They will supply us with the goods and technologies we require, bypassing the dollar and euro entirely. The economy minister blinked, his voice quivering. I knew nothing of this. You were not meant to, Traoré replied gently. Had French intelligence caught even a whisper, tonight's blockade would have begun months earlier. Dr. Konate lifted the prototype coin, letting it glint under the lamp. It is beautiful, she murmured, but will the people accept it? They are creatures of habit. They have stashed gold in jewelry shops for decades, Traoré countered with a knowing smile. We are giving them true value, not paper fantasies. But then he flipped open another folder. Inside were polished mock-ups of smartphone screens. Here lies the true revolution, he announced, the Burkina digital wallet. A free app distributed to every citizen, a gold-backed digital currency, absolutely transparent, secure, and untouchable by Western banks. The finance minister sat back, dazed. This is madness and genius. But how do we rally the people behind it? At that moment, Traoré's assistant entered briskly. Mr. President, the connection is ready. Traoré turned to his cabinet, his voice calm as a still lake. Convince the people? Watch the screen flickered to life. On it appeared 5 African heads of state: Mali, Niger, Guinea, Togo, Benin. Presidents, Traoré greeted solemnly. I trust we have all received the same message. The West has once more unsheathed its economic sword. But this time, we do not cower. Allow me to present our plan. 2 hours later, as the call ended, something tangible shifted in the air. Where fear had once sat heavily, determination now radiated. Traoré glanced at his team as dawn's first light painted the sky. A new day breaks, he whispered, not just over Ouagadougou, but over all of Africa. Dr. Konate closed her laptop gently. Shall we announce this to the people tomorrow? No, Traoré said firmly, straightening his jacket. We do it now. Before they queue at the banks, they deserve truth and pride, not panic. By 6:30 a.m., as the people of Burkina Faso stirred over morning coffee and warm breakfast, their television screens flickered to life. There, standing tall in his military uniform, President Traoré gazed back at them, steady and composed. My fellow Burkinabe, his voice resonated, I address you at this early hour with news of great importance. Last night, French banks and Western financial powers waged an economic war upon our soil. They severed our access to our money. They froze our lifelines. In homes, cafes, and streets, citizens exchanged anxious glances. You know why they did this? Traoré continued, his tone unwavering. Because we dared to demand independence. Because we chose to reclaim what is ours. Because we declared Burkina Faso belongs to its people. The camera zoomed in as he raised the shining coin. From today, we abandon the colonial shackles of the CFA franc. We introduce our own money, the Burkina gold, a currency backed by our own gold, a currency of true value. Then lifting his phone, he displayed the glowing screen of the Burkina digital wallet. And with this, every citizen will receive free access to secure, gold-backed money. Banks are no longer necessary to control your future. We take it back, together. At exactly 8:34 a.m., the world changed in ways no one could have imagined. Ibrahim Traoré's voice echoed through the screens of Burkina Faso, calm, resolute, unshakable. The digital gold, he proclaimed, will now rest directly in your wallets. For a few heartbeats, the nation stood frozen. Faces stared at their screens, some wide-eyed with trepidation, others shimmering with quiet hope. For many, it was the shadow of the unknown. But for others, it was the light of long-awaited deliverance. Sensing their unspoken doubts as if he had plucked the thoughts straight from their minds, Traoré smiled softly and reassured them. Do not fear. Every CFA franc in your accounts will transform into Burkina gold, doubled in value. No one here loses. Everyone stands to gain. Across the land, in homes, markets, schools, and dusty village squares, small gasps of disbelief blossomed into muted cries of joy. Hope, a thing long buried, began to flutter awake. And then, Traoré's voice deepened, his words now steel wrapped in velvet. But most importantly, we shall be the stewards of our own wealth. We shall be the architects of our destiny. The screen split open, and the faces of fellow West African leaders emerged beside him. Mali, Niger, Guinea, Togo, Benin, each one delivering the same unmistakable message. They too, on this historic day, were severing ties with the colonial CFA franc. They too were stepping into sovereignty, arm in arm, unveiling their gold-backed currencies in unison. This is no mere revolution, Traoré declared, his eyes unwavering. This is our evolution, the final chain of dependence shattered. Today we walk truly free. As the broadcast concluded, something remarkable rippled through the streets. There was no stampede to banks, no chaos or panic. Instead, spirited conversations ignited in cafes and corners, and thousands began eagerly downloading the Burkina Digital Wallet app. It was sleek, it was intuitive, but above all, it was theirs. Yet the greatest tremor was felt far beyond their borders. In Paris at 7:45 a.m., inside the French central bank, alarms blared behind closed doors. In a tense emergency meeting, the official overseeing Africa's desk sat pale and shaken, staring at the damning data on his screen. 6 nations, he whispered hoarsely. 6 nations have exited our system, simultaneously. This was a synchronized strike. The bank president slammed a fist on the table. What else? He barked. The official swallowed hard. Their digital wallets have already been downloaded millions of times. People are embracing this. There is no run on their banks, no collapse. The president lunged for his phone. I must contact the Ministry of Finance. We need immediate sanctions. The ministry is already calling, his assistant murmured, handing him the line. On the other end, the voice crackled, high-pitched and panicked. Our mining rights are void. Our energy contracts canceled. Military bases, permissions revoked. West Africa is slipping through our fingers. Back in Ouagadougou, Traoré watched international reactions cascade in from a wide screen in his office. Predictably, Western media spun apocalyptic headlines. Economic meltdown imminent in Africa. West African nations commit economic suicide. Traoré condemns his people to famine. But amidst the fear-mongering, unexpected messages of solidarity began pouring in, like distant drums beating to the same rhythm. Russia, China, India, Turkey, Brazil, South Africa, all sent congratulations, pledges of cooperation, and promises to recognize their shimmering gold-backed currencies. Dr. Konate burst into Traoré's office, breathless and gleaming. Mr. President, you will not believe this. 4 million downloads. That's almost a fifth of our entire population. Traoré's face softened into a deep, knowing smile. The people have tasted freedom, Konate, and once tasted, freedom is never surrendered. And it spreads, Konate continued, voice trembling with excitement. Thousands of downloads from Ghana, Congo, Senegal. Word is spreading fast. A week later, in a dusty village square, Traoré stood among farmers and shopkeepers. An elderly man clutched a simple smartphone in weathered hands. Mr. President, he murmured shyly, I don't know how to use this. Traoré crouched beside him, voice tender. Let me guide you, father, he said. See, when you press here, your wallet opens. Here you see how much Burkina gold you own. The old man's eyes widened, shimmering with something deeper than curiosity. This is the true value of my labor. Yes, father, Traoré affirmed, voice gentle but fierce. And no one can seize it from you. No one can freeze it. No one can halt your transfers. This is your sovereignty. Clutching the phone to his chest, the old man's voice broke. For the first time in my life, I feel my money belongs to me. That single sentence reverberated louder than any economist's forecast. This was not merely financial reform. This was the reclaiming of dignity. International institutions like the IMF and World Bank had scoffed. They won't last a month. But 1 month passed, and the economy stood unbowed. 2 months, and trade flows surged upward. 3 months, and Traoré received an invitation to speak at the BRICS summit in Moscow. There, standing before a gallery of global leaders, Traoré shared West Africa's audacious journey. The gold standard was abandoned half a century ago, the Russian leader mused. Yet here you are, resurrecting it? We have not turned back the clock, Traoré replied, voice steady as iron. We have leapt forward, digital gold, secured by our resources. This is tomorrow's independence. The Chinese leader leaned closer, intrigued. Your wallet technology could reshape the entire global financial order. After the summit, the partnerships inked by Burkina Faso set Western newsrooms ablaze with alarm. Direct energy and military pacts with Russia, technological and infrastructure alliances with China, medical and agricultural cooperation with India, food security projects with Brazil, industrial and educational ventures with Turkey. Western headlines screamed, Burkina Faso pivots away from the West, Traoré's perilous gamble. But Traoré, unbothered, smiled as he boarded his flight home. We are not turning our backs on the West, he told Konate quietly. We are merely stepping closer to the entire world. No longer servants to one master, but partners with many. On his phone, the Burkina digital wallet shimmered. 12 million active users, 2 million daily transactions, 6 countries, 0 outages, 0 hacks. 6 months later, the currency evolved into the African gold. 14 African nations embraced it. The relic of colonial control, the CFA Franc, was finally laid to rest in history's grave. Ibrahim Traoré was no longer just a national leader. He had become the spark of a continental awakening. At the grand opening of Burkina Faso's new central bank, its golden doors gleaming, Traoré stood tall. Behind those doors, their reclaimed gold, once held hostage in foreign vaults, now lay secure on their soil. "We are not just inaugurating a building today," Traoré spoke, his voice carrying weight and pride. "We are inscribing a new chapter into the soul of our nation. Once our gold was stolen. Today it is home, and it shall never leave again." In the back rows, a woman wept quietly. She was the widow of Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary hero silenced by a coup in 1987. "He would have dreamt of this day," she whispered, clasping Traoré's hand. "We are realizing his vision," Traoré responded gently, "but only because of the seeds he sowed long ago." Outside at the newly formed Burkina Technology Center, young African engineers labored tirelessly. They were crafting the next generation of the wallet app, now fortified with blockchain, energy efficient, and fully conceived, designed, and coded by African minds. Burkina Faso had not merely birthed a currency. They had forged an entire ecosystem, from mining to refining, from fintech to security, built by Africans for Africans. In Washington, the IMF president smiled stiffly before cameras. "Our dialogues with Burkina Faso and its allies continue. We are evaluating their system." Translation: "We cannot stop them. We must now negotiate with them." Meanwhile, the French president embarked on a frantic Africa tour, promising new beginnings to his former colonies. But the old myths no longer seduced. At a press conference, an African journalist boldly asked, "How do you perceive West Africa's shift to a gold-backed currency?" "We respect their sovereignty," the French leader said tightly, "but I caution them against risks." He was interrupted by a wave of laughter from the African press corps. A year later, Ibrahim Traoré took the stage at the United Nations General Assembly. His speech was short, unforgettable. "A year ago," he began, "6 nations made a courageous leap. Today, 22 African countries trade in the United African Gold. Our inflation has plummeted. Our trade has soared. Our technology investments have tripled." Western delegates shifted uneasily. They told us we would crumble. They warned we would starve. They mocked us as fools. A quiet smile crept across Traoré's face. "But we never argued back. We simply did it." The chamber erupted in thunderous applause. An African nation had broken centuries-old shackles, and this was only the beginning.